The story starts on a Texas ranch where Harvey Sullivan is waiting for the arrival of a very special package. Dr. Slater is shocked by how large the box is, and a thug named Russell says that the pair of birds inside weighs almost half a ton. This makes the scientist question whether it's a good idea to release them so soon, and Harvey gets irritated by her negativity. An employee named Dale laughs at his colleague's fear and mimics the sound of the birds to scare them, but the joke loses its humor when a much worse sound responds from inside the box. Opening a small hatch, he fires tranquilizer darts and, yelling, pounds on the box until he convinces himself that the beasts are asleep. The guards are doubtful, as the birds might be pretending, but Dale mocks the idea, saying they are just a pair of stupid animals. In a lapse of chivalry, Harvey suggests that the doctor wait in the car, and she accepts without delay. Then the guards finally pull the locks, and the side of the box collapses, revealing the immense fallen creatures. Dale kicks one of them just to be sure and releases the transport to the lab when he sees that the animal isn't moving. The first is taken out of the box without incident, and one of the guards goes in to get the second, finding it strange that its eyes are open. Its head is then bitten by the gigantic beak, and Harvey thinks it's best to wait inside the car too. 6 months later, a man named Keith Stern is preparing for another weekend in nature, as his hobby is birdwatching. Talking to the gas station attendant, he says he is hoping to see a Mexican eagle, but the other doesn't find much humor in this pastime. Nearby is Harvey's ranch, where we see one of the giant birds staring down a huge crocodile. Keith begins the hike without noticing the calls from his daughter Maddie until he hears a bizarre sound coming from afar and decides to see what it is. After crossing a river and climbing a staircase, he arrives at the limits of the ranch, where there is an electrified fence. He climbs a tree to get over the obstacle and soon hears more beastly screeches. Upon finding a fallen skull, he wonders what kind of bird eats something that big. Hearing the screeches much closer, he gets scared and runs to find a hiding place. Harvey stops by the lab to check on Slater's progress in breeding the creatures and becomes furious to learn that she has failed again. Outside, Dale and Russell greet Larry, who came to deliver food. Dale notices the mounds of dynamite in his van, and Larry explains that he uses that to fish. Next to the explosives is a cage with a medium-sized dog, which Larry brought to feed the monsters. Suddenly, Keith starts screaming for help, and the thugs panic upon seeing the intruder in the restricted area. Dale tells him to run for the gate, but he fumbles with the keys, and Keith is attacked by one of the birds. Maddie calls her father again, unaware that his face is being devoured. Harvey is furious to learn about the incident and refuses to inform the authorities, leaving Slater indignant. The scientist decides to resign, and Harvey pretends to let her leave, despite the risk of a report. Dale goes to get her car and says goodbye, not revealing that he sabotaged the vehicle to leave her at the mercy of the birds. Each smashes a window, and Slater is devoured from both sides. A few days later, Maddie begins to suspect that her father may have had an accident and decides to look for him. She tells her friend Paige that Keith always carries a GPS connected to the computer in the family cabin. Paige won't let her go alone and invites herself on the expedition, also calling 2 strong boys to protect them. Maddie hates the idea, as one of them is her friend Justin, whom she was interested in until he started dating another girl, Taylor. Paige thinks he only did that to make Maddie jealous, but the 2 girls are shocked to discover that Taylor has been included in the outing too. The other boy is named Brett, and he is just as excited about the adventure as Justin. As the 5 hit the road, a motorcyclist named Trent is arriving at the same gas station where Keith filled up before the tragic hike. Russell and Dale arrive in a van right afterward, and it doesn't take long for the group of young people to show up as well. Taylor is horrified by the women's restroom, and Maddie begins the investigation, unaware that she is giving the thugs the game. Russell hears the girl asking about her father and deduces that she is talking about the recent intruder. Trent tries to flirt with Taylor as she exits the restroom and ends up getting punched. He limps out of the gas station and, seeing that Justin's car is already gone, lies that Taylor forgot her phone in the restroom. Believing he just wants to return it, the attendant points out which direction the group went. Arriving at the cabin, the tracker shows where he is, and Maddie worries when she sees that he hasn't moved in a long time. Justin tries to calm her down and assures her that they will find Keith, no matter what it takes. The group starts planning the rescue expedition, and Taylor notices that the signal from the tracker is failing right now, which makes Maddie even more nervous. Upon leaving the cabin, Taylor asks why everyone is carrying heavy backpacks, and the boys explain that nature is unpredictable, and that means they must always be prepared. but she is indignant when one of them talks about camping overnight if necessary. Since she has never done anything like that and clearly hates all of this, she suggests that they call the police and leave it to the professionals. A little irritated, Maddie replies that her father is an adventurer and the police aren't going to take his disappearance seriously. Less polite than her friend, Paige tells Taylor to pretend it's a camping trip before the store's liquidation sale. After a few kilometers of hiking, Maddie suggests a break for rest, and Justin takes the opportunity to ask why she has been distancing herself from him lately. He remembers how close they used to be, and now she only responds to his messages with one word or two. Maddie brushes it off, saying she has been busy with college, but the guy doesn't buy that excuse. Trying to rekindle their friendship, he reminds Maddie of funny situations they went through together and even manages to get her to laugh a little. But soon Taylor arrives, asking what's so funny. Justin is surprised by his girlfriend's sudden good humor, and she explains that she got a signal on her phone to post her selfie posing as a nature fan. Upset by the romance, Maddie decides that the break is over, and the group continues walking until they reach the river. Not seeing any bridge, Taylor doesn't understand how they intend to get to the other side and becomes grumpy again when someone mentions getting into the water. Maddie finds the wristwatch that Keith forgot hanging on a branch before making the same crossing. Seeing that the group truly intends to cross the river, Taylor complains to Justin, but he says her alternative is to wait alone in the woods. She stops complaining right away and agrees to join them, albeit reluctantly. In the middle of the way, a branch gets caught in her clothes, causing a huge scandal. She thinks it's a crocodile and reaches the other bank in tears, instantly regaining composure when Paige explains that it was just a plant. Trent is arriving by motorcycle at Keith's cabin and recognizes Justin's car. He tries to break a window with a rock, but it ricochets off the glass and hits him back in the face. Meanwhile, the young people continue retracing Keith's steps and climb the stairs shouting his name, as they are now close to his last indicated GPS location. Instead of wasting their voices, Taylor records herself calling Keith and leaves the audio playing. Shortly thereafter, they reach the electrified fence, and Maddie says they must have taken the wrong path, but Brett assures her that Keith was on the other side according to the GPS. Taylor says he might know the property owner, but it's obvious that in this case, he would have used the front gate. Additionally, Brett notices that the property looks more like a government facility than a typical farm. The idea of jumping that fence doesn't even cross the young people's minds, and they prefer to follow it until they find a gate. Taylor is already concerned about the time, fearing they will have to return all this way in the dark, but Justin replies that everyone brought flashlights. Arriving at the gate, a guard greets the group with a gun drawn, shouting that this is private property and telling them to get lost. Maddie explains that her father is lost and there is a GPS signal showing that he is inside. The guard says that's impossible, as each gate is monitored 24 hours a day, but asks the youngsters to wait while he talks to his superiors. Harvey is having lunch when the guard calls him on the radio, and he orders the entrance of the group to be released, saying they will be welcomed at the aviary gate. For the first time, Paige and Taylor share the same opinion, as they both suspect this sudden generosity. Arriving at the meeting point, everyone is astonished by the level of security at this aviary, not knowing what kind of bird would require all of that to be contained. Taylor reaches her limit and refuses to go further, which disappoints Justin. He says their friends cannot abandon Maddie's father like that after they have come so close to where he is. The couple begins to argue, and both are surprised when Maddie interrupts to agree with Taylor. She says it will soon get dark, and it really would be better to return another day, more prepared. Moreover, the group has already done a lot for her father, and she doesn't want to put any of them at risk. Unfortunately, it is now too late to make this decision, as Taylor has just been hit by a tranquilizer dart. Dale and Russell are the welcoming committee prepared by Harvey, and both continue aiming darts at the rest of the visitors. Justin tries to help his girlfriend while Brett also takes a dart in the shoulder. Maddie and Paige try to flee but are also hit and faint soon after. A little later, they are all piled inside the van, still unconscious. In addition to the 5 friends, Russell has also captured Trent during the patrol around and tells them he found him unconscious with a rooster on his forehead. Harvey orders Trent to be sedated as well and to toss everyone into the barn before taking care of the intruders' vehicles. What he doesn't know is that Trent has already woken up and is listening to the whole conversation from inside the van. As soon as Russell opens the door, the guy knocks him down and runs off, but he doesn't get very far. Dave manages to hit him with a dart and gets scolded by the boss for the insensitive celebration, as Harvey says that no one there is a criminal, and all of this is for the sake of science. When the young people begin to wake up, Taylor cannot believe that Trent is there with them. He tells a false version of events to avoid admitting that he chased her to get back at her for the punch, and says that the thugs kidnapped him when he had to stop his motorcycle on the shoulder. Then Maddie sees some shoe prints in the mud and tells the others they must belong to her father. Since his last location was right in the middle of that sinister aviary, everything suggests they were taken there too. It is just at that moment that they hear the screeches, and we see that Harvey is monitoring everything through the cameras. Brett finds a more concerning footprint that could only have been left by a colossal biped. Maddie starts to distance herself, desperate to find her father, but her friends convince her that the best way to help Keith is to get out of there and call the police. Brett takes the lead, guiding the group south to look for an exit. Soon the horrifying noises begin again, this time much closer to them, and Brett tells everyone to stay still. Trent disagrees with the strategy, as he feels like an easy target just standing there, and decides to run. The others end up following suit, and that's how they come face to face with the first giant bird, which pecks off Trent's head in one bite. Everyone is terrified, and when the second bird appears, no one suggests staying still anymore. They start running, with the second bird coming right after them. The first continues eating what is left of Trent, but soon joins its partner in the hunt. The young people end up separating during the flight, and Justin begins to climb a tree, while Paige finds herself alone. Taylor and Brett are already at the top of the neighboring tree, but Maddie has not climbed when the bird arrives. Justin extends his hand to her, and manages to pull her up just in time to escape with her life, but the beast manages to bite her leg before giving up. Paige hides under a log and tries to contain her hysteria when the murderous bird appears. She rolls to the side and sits silently until there is a horrible sound of a skull being pierced, and we see that she just received the fatal peck on the top of her head. The other four are still perched in the trees, and Justin tends to Maddie's leg as best he can. Searching through Keith's things that she brought from the cabin, she finds the knife that she gave her father for his birthday. Taylor asks if those creatures are some kind of turbocharged ostrich, and Maddie says no. She thinks they are a species called Titanus, also known as the terror bird, which was supposed to be extinct. More interested in escaping from them than in classifying them, Justin says they need to jump the fence by climbing a tree, but the problem now is how to get there safely. At the same time, Harvey faces the opposite problem, which is how to put these youngsters in danger again. He orders the thugs to dart everyone if necessary, and he loses patience when Dave hesitates to enter the aviary, telling the two to defend themselves with the tranquilizers as they have always done. The pair of birds begins to circle the pair of trees, and Maddie deduces what happened to Paige when one of them spits out her glasses. Then Taylor starts to insult the bird and throws small fruits in its face. Brett warns that it would be better not to provoke the newly brought hostile creature from the brink of extinction, but the girl ignores the advice, and the bird does indeed get annoyed. Its hops come very close to reaching Taylor's feet, and the animal only stops when it gets distracted by the thug's shots. The two then force the youngsters to come down from the branches and hand over their survival kit backpack. Dale starts laughing at them and makes a comment about Maddie being smarter than her father, thus confirming her worst fears. He and Russell then order the whole group into the forest, not disguising that their intention is to use them as food. Neither of them sees that the pair of birds is coming from behind, and Dale begins to count to 3. Russell loses his head when the count reaches 2, and Dale gets so scared that he forgets the jeep and runs away on foot. The 4 friends take the chance and steal the vehicle, to Harvey's dismay. He berates Dale as soon as he sees him and says he will stay in the lab, which is the only safe place at this point. Dale will stay on guard right there, preventing the creatures from entering the house. Meanwhile, the youngsters are reaching one of the exits of the aviary and use Dale's keys to open the gate. However, as the pair of beasts is already approaching quickly and there is no time to close the gate, the birds gain access to the rest of the ranch. A few meters ahead, the vehicle starts to malfunction, and the young people decide to take shelter in the barn. Dale tries to warn Harvey over the radio, but he is busy with the eggs and does not hear. Justin fumbles with the barn door keys while the birds approach. Dale decides to notify the boss personally, but ends up being chased by one of the birds, while Brett faces the other with a metal bar. The duel doesn't last long, and the guy quickly receives a peck to the neck. At the same time, Dale forgets that the fence inside is also electrified and ends up suffering. When the three survivors finally manage to get inside the barn, Harvey is waiting for them with a gun. He starts another of his long speeches, blaming the hostages for everything and complaining about having to hire new thugs. With their backs to the door, the trio hears better than he does what is happening outside, and Taylor starts to retort everything Harvey says to keep his attention. When Maddie realizes that the birds are right behind them, she suddenly flings open the door and lets them in. The couple goes for Harvey and finishes him off in a matter of seconds. Taylor runs toward the house while Maddie hides in the lab with Justin. Taking advantage of the moment of peace, Justin confesses that Paige was right, and he is only with Taylor to try to forget Maddie. She apologizes for isolating herself when she lost her mother, and the two end up making up. Taylor can't get into the house and is forced to hide behind a tree until the bird leaves. However, this does not save her, as the crocodile comes out of the river just then and devours her. When Larry arrives at the ranch with another delivery, he parks in his usual spot and, unaware that it is no longer safe there, gets out of the van to unload the dogs. He finds it strange that no one has come to receive the merchandise and also notices the unusual desperation of the barking, but it's too late when Larry decides to look back. The bird is right in front of him and begins to eat him without delay. In the lab, Maddie studies Harvey's notes and confirms that there are only 2 birds of that species. She and Justin conclude that they will only leave that ranch when they kill the pair. Leaving the lab, Maddie grabs Harvey's gun and shoots one of the birds as soon as it appears at the door. The bird falls dead, but the second arrives right afterward, and now the bullets have run out. The two flee running and are stopped by one of the guards asking about Harvey. The bird destroys the door as it leaves and attacks the guard, giving the duo time to take refuge on a roof. Remembering Taylor's tactics, Justin records his voice on his cell phone and throws the device away, diverting the beast's attention. When the bird discovers it was fooled, Maddie and Justin are already getting into Larry's van. However, the keys are not in the ignition, and Justin has to get out to check Larry's pockets. He finds the keys just as the bird returns and barely escapes its beak. Justin drives at full speed, saying he will crash through the gate, but Maddie stops him from doing that madness. While searching for more weapons inside the van, she finds Larry's dynamite, and Justin gets an idea, while the bird begins to attack the vehicle. The two open the back door and start provoking it, lighting the fuse as soon as it enters. Then they run out the front and close it in there, running to shelter from the explosion. A charred paw confirms their victory, and the two kiss to celebrate, unaware that nearby there is a chick hatching from an egg.